wants to ask any question, then they can post the question in the chat box, and no other information should be posted in the chat box, like I am present here, etc. Moderators will take the question during the discussion or will be answered by the speaker in the chat box subsequently. Now I request the President of NPT, Honorable Dr. R.K. Dikshit sir, to address the gathering. Over to Dr. Dikshit sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor R.K. Dikshit, and I am very much privileged and proud that our association, that is NPT, is working everything which is possible towards the excellence in the pharmacology. And in that chain, one addition is our regular, CMEs and online training. And one of the best training throughout the India is on GCP training. And that GCP training, previous year it was hit. Now this time it is mega hit. And in future, we will be having more and more CMEs like this. So my best wishes for everyone for better learning, for better future, and for the better pharmacology of India. So thank you very much. And now I request to play a video from the site regarding our upcoming conference to be held at the Coimbatore, and that will be it will be the mega hit. So can I get the video to be played?
Yes, sir.
सरकशी का परचम लहरा दो गर्दिश में फिर अपनी सरजमी का परचम लहरा दो लहरा दो लहरा दो सरकशी का परचम लहरा दो गर्दिश में सरकशी का परचम लहरा दो गर्दिश में फिर अपनी सरजमी का परचम लहरा दो लहरा दो लहरा दो सरकशी का परचम लहरा दो
As mentioned by Dr. Dikshit sir, NPT is having 4th National Conference at PHG Institute Coimbatore on 28 and 29th of November 2025. Again, as General Secretary of the NPT, I request all of you to register for this annual conference. Today, we are having two new topics. First is on the clinical trial protocol, IB, and essential documents, which will be taken by Dr. Hira Bhalla sir, and second by Dr. Major Jitendra Singh sir on informed consent process. The first session will be moderated by Dr. Sanjay Gaur sir. Dr. Gaur sir is presently working as professor and head at Government Doon Medical College, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. Sir is having teaching experience at about 20 years. Sir is former joint director of the medical education, Government of Maharashtra. Sir is also executive member of the Uttarakhand Medical Council, and Sir is having more than 40 publications in national as well as international journals. Sir is also the member of IEC GDMC Dehradun. I welcome you, sir, as a moderator for this session.
Second session. Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. I'm privileged and
welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
And I really thank our president, sir, Dr. R.K. Dikshit, our General Secretary, and all the who's and who of NPT. And on my behalf, I welcome everybody on the 4th National Workshop on Group Clinical Practice, the second session, which we are having today on 13th of March. And this is organized by National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics in association with the Department of Pharmacology, AIMS, Nagpur.
Okay, sir.
Now,
Okay.
as you all
Second
know,
session,
good clinical
just a
practice.
minute, sir. Sir, just a minute. Let me
Sure.
introduce the second moderator. Second session will be moderated by Dr. Naresh Jyoti, sir. Sir is working as professor and head Department of Pharmacology. Sir is also Deputy Medical Superintendent at Adesh Medical College and Hospital, Haryana. Sir is also Chairperson of Pharmacovigilance Committee and Member Secretary of IEC PHR as well as Nodal Officer come member secretary for the Antibiotic Stewardship Committee. Sir is having more than 20 research paper and Sir is also international yoga teacher and received the best teacher award from the college. Sir is also Haryana State Gaurav Award for outstanding performance and exemplary service above and beyond the call of the duty. I also welcome you, sir, for this webinar. Now I request Sanjay, sir, to introduce today's first speaker, Dr. Hira Balla, sir. First session will be of 20 minutes, followed by question answer session for 10 minutes. Over to Dr. Sanjay Gaur, sir.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So we were talking about good clinical practice, and as it is known as GCP, and its importance, which is evident by the fact that the new drug clinical trial rules 2019 have mentioning of GCP at around 24 times, including the defining clauses. And it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Dr. Hira Bhalla, Dr. Hira Lal Bhalla. Dr. Hira Lal Bhalla is professor and in charge clinical patient and outpatient unit, Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, AIMS, Gorakhpur. He has got around 17 years of experience in teaching and clinical research. He successfully completed 12 regulatory trials, including 5 as principal investigator. He has got more than 25 research articles in national and international journals being published. He's authored 3 books and contributed 1 chapter, including Ocular Pharmacology, in a very reputed publisher, Elsevier. He has also developed a tool to assess the quality of life in patients suffering from low backache, and he's a subject expert for site inspection in clinical trial sites under CDSCO. He's recognized by Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission for contribution to individual case safety reports, that is ICSRs, under the Pharmacovigilance Program of India. And he's a coordinator for training programs on GCP, NDCT 2019, and ICMR ethical guidelines for Institutional Human Ethics Committee as Institutional Human Ethics Committee member. Dr. Hira Bhalla here will take us to the importance and the contribution of GCP in clinical trial, in development of clinical trial and the implementation of clinical trial protocols, and including investigators brochure and essential documents related to it. So it's my privilege to hand over the stage to Dr. Hira Bhalla. Dr. Hira Bhalla, please.
Thank you, sir. Always your junior, sir. Thank you, Sanjay, sir.
It's so proud to have a junior like you.
Okay, sir. Shall I share my slides, sir?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Is my slide is visible and audio is I am audible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes,
You
yes,
can go
you are
ahead.
audible. Go ahead.
Okay. I am Dr. Achal Bhalla from AIMS Gorakhpur. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our president, Dr. R.K. Dixit, sir, Dr. C.M. Kamal, sir, National Coordinator for NPT, Organizing Secretary, Dr. Ganesh Dhakle, sir, and all the members of organizing team of NPT for giving me such a beautiful opportunity to speak at 4th National Workshop on Good Clinical Practice. Already there are 658, not 59, 661 participants are there, and I am welcome to all the participants for this wonderful good clinical practice session. This session will provide an in-depth understanding of critical documents essential for conducting clinical trials. And regulatory trials and clinical trials are require 3 things: a valid document, a valid document, a valid document. This is very important. A good document or these documents essential for conducting essential clinical trials or regulatory trials, ensuring regulatory compliance and maintaining data integrity. So I have emphasized my next slide. So documents that individually and collectively allow for the evaluation of trial conduct and its quality or their quality. That means I am going to emphasize on one point. These documents are not only audited by sponsor independent audit functions, but also inspected by regulatory authorities to verify the validity of trial conduct and data integrity. So very important. So for the definition of essential documents, please remember all participants, these documents individually or collectively allow for the evaluation of trial conduct and its quality. So these documents further categorized into 3 sections. Section number 1, before the clinical phase. Before the clinical phase, these documents are required prior to commencement of the clinical trial and include investigator brochure, signed protocols, informed consent forms, ethics committee approvals, agreement between individual parties like CTA, clinical trial agreement, tri-party, bi-party agreements, insurance, CV, normal values, sample label, handling instruction of IP, investigator products, and other things. And section 2 is emphasized on updated version of all the things that comes in section 1, like updated to the investigator brochure, EC, ethics committee, and competent authority approvals, ongoing product analysis, shipment information, monitoring. Very much important things is monitoring visits and its reports, communication influencing study conduct. If there is if any assays occur at other sites, that to be communicated to all the sites. Next is section 3, after completion or termination. After completion or termination, final product accountability logs are there for product destruction, subject ID code list for follow-up. For this subject ID code, it is very much essential as we have the first-hand experience from the sponsor. When a sponsor compiled the result and found that participants from my site who were not seroprotected at the end of study. For that, for the patient safety and the best interest in the patient participation, we receive a mail and we communicate that to the patient by the subject ID code that you are going to take a booster dose of such and such vaccine or such and such drug. So these are very important. Next important things for the section 3 after completion is closeout visit monitoring reports, audit certificates, and clinical study reports. Next slide. Next, under the umbrella of investigator brochure, most of the documents comes under the investigator brochure. This investigator brochure is a document of critical importance throughout the drug development process and is updated. Yes, this is very much important. Every time updated version, updated with new information as it becomes available. So the investigator brochure, IB, is a compilation of the clinical and non-clinical data on the investigational product, drug, supplement, device, and other products in human participants. This investigator brochure is maintained by sponsor or a developer or a drug developer. Sponsor maintain the this development of IB, which contains the body of information about the investigational product obtained before and during the drug trial. Next. Investigator brochure must be submitted to ethics committee for its review and approval. Please remember this investigator brochure should be submitted prior to 21 days according to NDCT 2019. For industry sponsored trial, please remember sponsored trial, it is the industry sponsor responsibility to prepare and update the investigator brochure. For IIS, investigator studies, investigator initiated trials. If it is post-marketing study, package insert must be used for detailing, for manufacturer to provide details if it supplies the trial drug. And in case of our biomedical research, an expanded background information section should be provided in trial protocol. Next. So who is the end user of IB? IB is important for investigator number 1, members of ethics committee number 2, and it should be given to DCGI for its use. So purpose of IB, the purpose of investigator brochure is to help investigators understand why the protocol was designed the way it is, and to ensure they follow important aspect of it correctly, such as what is its dose of the IP drug, frequency, what is it interval, method of administration, safety monitoring procedures, all are included in this purpose for investigator brochure. So content of investigator brochure, it first is summary, introduction, physical, chemical, and pharmaceutical properties, non-clinical studies like toxicology, preclinical pharmacology, preclinical pharmacokinetics, and its metabolism, clinical studies like efficacy, safety, and post-marketing experience. So here's a first-hand example for table of content of investigator brochure. It is start from the summary till its references. All are included in the investigator brochure: preclinical toxicity, proposed clinical trial, incidence of, for example, it was the drug for the polio, vaccine for the polio, incidence of a polio, everything regarding polio, it is documented in this investigator brochure. These are the few points. So for preclinical toxicity study, a summary of the toxicology effect found in relevant study conducted in different animal species, including where appropriate, like single dose, repeated dose, carcinogenicity, special studies like irritation, sensitization study, reproductive toxicity, and genotoxicity or mutagenicity, including the preclinical. In clinical pharmacology, a summary of information of the IB, including its pharmacokinetic, absorption, distribution, metabolism, elimination, plasma protein binding. And for BABE, bioavailability of the investigational product using a reference dosage form. Regarding clinical efficacy, a summary of information about the investigator product regarding its pharmacodynamic, its efficacy, its dose response that were obtained from the preceding trials in the humans or healthy volunteers or patients. So summarizing safety and effectiveness from multiple trials make the data easier and understand. Regarding clinical safety, this is very much important. A summary of information about the investigator products, its safety that were obtained from preceding trial in humans, a tabular form or tabular summaries of adverse drug reactions for all the clinical trials must be there. Important difference across the indication or subgroup should be discussed, and also provide the precautions or spatial monitoring, like for the drugs which causes a problem in heart or useful in cardiovascular, we have to go for the ECG or echo. For these are the special monitoring procedure to be done prior to start the given the IP to the patient or a subject. To provide the precautions or a special monitoring to be done as a part of investigational use of the product. Next. So reference safety information, this is very important, or a risk benefit assessment, SUSR. Role is to provide this reference for identifying suspected unexpected serious adverse reaction, SUSARs. Adverse reaction includes a list of known adverse effect and their frequencies. and also discuss about the risk benefit evaluation that helps investigator make informed clinical decision on trial safety. So what is the guidance to the investigator from IB? What you get from IB? It provides the most informative interpretation of all the data available regarding that IP for that clinical problem. The aim is to give investigators a clear understanding of risk, side effects, necessary tests, precautions in a clinical trial. It also offers guidance on identifying and treating adverse drug reaction based on the past experience and the drug's effect. So this covers the regarding our the most bigger umbrella of investigator brochure. The next important point is the heart of investigator brochure is clinical trial protocol. So how to execute a clinical trial or a regulatory trial? Always we have to a comment how to execute a clinical trial. The answer is it is as per protocol. So it is a protocol, a structured document outlining the objectives, design, methodology, and conduct of a clinical trial. Its purpose is to ensure scientific validity, regulatory compliance, and participant safety. The essential component of clinical trial protocol, for example, we are showing the example of same study, right from the administrative structure, content, abbreviation, and acronyms, protocol synopsis, introduction, study rationale, study hypothesis, primary objective, secondary objective, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, discontinuation criteria during the study, investigational detail, labeling, treatment assignment, study visit, when should the patient will come or subject will come, safety follow-up, final study visit, unscheduled visit, laboratory evaluation, notification of laboratory results to participants. Next. Safety monitoring, recording of adverse effect, reporting of serious adverse effect, follow-up of adverse events. And next point is statistical consideration and analysis plan, quality control and quality assurance, data management and proceedings, regulatory and ethical requirements, and last is protocol amendments if there, and finance and insurance should be there, and references. So these are the 20 points to be included or essential component of clinical trial protocol, as we already discussed. Next important document or essential documents is informed consent form. The key principle for informed consent forms, the voluntary participation, risk-benefit ratio, and withdrawal rights. Other document like case report form it is for data collection. And its essential fields are patient ID, demographic data, doses received, drug events. Other documents are for the study progress report and other essential documents like interim and final reports, adverse event reports, study termination, and protocol deviation PD reports. Now, for proper documentation, we conclude to the proper documentation is the backbone of clinical trial management. It ensures ethical compliance, protects participants' rights, and maintain data integrity. Reference are, this is referred from CDISCO and Exer 9, essential documents for conduct of clinical trial checklist, and also for ICH GCP site. Thank you for your participation, and I am open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dr. Hira. That was a beautiful presentation. You very aptly said that it is all about documentation, documentation, and documentation. Well, you very beautifully illustrated the documentation regarding the pre-study or during the study, and documentation that are required after the completion of the study. And then the importance and components of investigators' brochure were very comprehensively covered. Execution of clinical trial, that is the protocol, the heart of the clinical trial, the document, the hard document of the clinical trial, its importance and components were aptly covered. And you delineated the importance of the informed consent form.
Yes, sir.
So basically, what we get out of this discussion is that the core of clinical trials or any biomedical research is patient safety.
Yes,
And
sir.
that is what we are here for, good clinical practice. Now, the house is open for questions.
Sir, there is one question already in the chat box.
Uh, I can't see it in the chat
Question
box.
and answer session jao, sir. Question and answer session.
In RCT,
Ah,
what occurs first, consent taking or randomization? Consent taking. Always we have to take consent first. Then we will go for any procedure or randomization for the patient.
Yes.
There is another question.
Yes, sir.
Does adverse effect report needs verification from any supervisors?
Does adverse effect reports need verification from any supervisors? Sir, for any adverse effect, we are meticulously in a clinical trial. For any adverse effect or any SAE, we 24 hours we are there for the patient, its verification, its supports, and its dealing with all the medical what you called uh, uh, treatment, sir.
Yes.
Actually, can I come in? Can I come in, sir?
Yeah, yes.
Actually, how we have to deal with adverse effects and all these are all delineated in the protocol section.
Yes, sir.
So we have got tools to analyze the adverse effect, what to do with the adverse effect, where to report. Everything is delineated. So an independent supervisor is not necessary for adverse effect reporting.
Yeah.
Hira, one more question is there.
Ji, sir,
How
ji.
long regulatory trial document is to be stored by the ethics committee once it is completed?
Sir, it is according to the regulatory bodies. Like EMA required the documentation for 15 years. CDSCO required for documentation for 5 years. Now it is a bit in change that we have to store the document of the patient throughout the life, matlab, as for 20 years, for more than 20 years. So it is according to the different regulatory bodies take different steps to store the documents for archival, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Dr. Hira, I would like to know your viewpoint on behalf of all the students that are in attendance of this session. That we are open to, I mean, the protocol of a clinical trial is a live document. So we can have versions of protocol. So what is the process of the same? Say, if we talk about the investigators brochure,
Okay, sir.
whether how do we include the latest information, so whatever the informations we want to upgrade the investigators brochure. So what is the process of updating of this investigator brochure, of course, during the period of trial?
Sir, during the period of trials, it is the solely responsibility of sponsor to update the this investigator brochure. For example, in recently, there is a trial of pneumococcal, and we are come to know that we have to go for an booster dose for that. So sponsor took a step and write to our ethics committee, write to us only, we are going to give an extra dose of and CTA is then replace the CTA also. So all the documents, this is very much clear. All the documents regarding the this investigator brochure is updated by sponsor only, sir.
Uh, Any other questions from the house?
No, sir, you can go ahead.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Hiraballa. That was a very informative and very comprehensive session, and I hope all the attendees must have taken a huge benefit out of these. And you have also sorted out certain queries that were raised from the panelists and from the attendees. And I thank you all for attending this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Long live NPT, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gaur sir and Hira Bhalla sir. Now I request Dr. Naresh Jyoti sir to introduce today's second speaker, Major General Dr. Jitendra Singh sir. Second session will be of 20 minutes, followed by question answer session for 10 minutes. Over to Dr. Naresh Jyoti sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ganesh. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Major Dr. Jitendra Singh, who is sharing his insight on informed consent process, which is very crucial for ethical conduct, ensuring participant autonomy and promoting transparency and trust. Major Dr. Jitendra Singh is presently working as a professor and head GMC Nasik, and he's also a member secretary IEC GMC Nasik. He's a recipient of 2 Army Medal by central government for working in counter-insurgency operational area. He's vice president for National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics. And he has more than 15 years of experience for working as a cool in MNC pharmaceutical company in external capacity. He has more than 30 research papers in international index journal to his credit. And he is also a certified speaker for Maharashtra Medical Council. And he has received Best Teacher Award from D.Y. Patil University, Pune. He is also Executive Committee member, IPPNW, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, Global NGO. And right now, he's also a member of International Society of Hypertension. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Major Dr. Jitendra Singh. I would like to request you to begin your presentation. Over to sir. You are mute, sir. Please kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for this brief introduction. How can I share my screen, sir, now?
So there's a green button on the window,
Yeah.
share. It's written
Yes,
share.
sir.
Click on that.
Yes. Yeah, that's come. Is my slide visible to everybody?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for my introduction, and I take forward the presentation by your words only, as very rightly said by Dr. Naresh Jyoti sir, that this is a very important and a crucial document in conduction of any kind of an academic research or a clinical trial, any kind of biomedical studies which we perform. So I just want to tell my students that they are undergoing the training for GCP. So they must have read about the history also, like, which has stated so many unethical experiments which has happened in history, which has forced the decision makers to come out with few regulations and few important things. So the requirement for informed consent in ICH GCP became mandatory as a result of ethical violations in medical research, particularly following the Nuremberg trials after World War II. I think this you must have all be read in history. Now, if we talk about informed consent, so informed consent is a process by which the participants voluntarily confirms his or her willingness to participate in a particular research or a clinical trial after importantly having been informed of all aspects of the trial that are relevant to the subject's decision to participate. Now, this is a very important definition which has been given as per ICH E6 guideline, in which there are few important things which I will be highlighting in my coming presentations. So, operational definition about informed consent, that this consent process, it follows 4 very important components. First is, we need to ensure the competence of the individual who is giving this informed consent to us. What do we mean by competence of that person? This we'll see later. But we need to understand that the person should be competent physically, mentally, and legally to give his acceptance about a study, that whether he wants to be a part of this study or not, once he understands the entire part of the study. Secondly, it also provides, we need to provide relevant information to the potential participants. Now, relevant means what? Relevant means the necessary and the complete information about the research we need to give it to the potential participants. Thirdly, we need to ensure that the information which we are giving to our participants or that the trial participants, they have understood the information. Because most of the time, we doctors, when we are talking to patients, there are certain medical terms which comes into this. Research is a completely different process where there are SOPs where we need to follow, we need to understand that how it is to be given. But one important thing is we need to ensure that whatever information we have given, it has been comprehended by the participant. And after getting all the information and after understanding it in a right perspective, then we need to assure that the voluntariness of the participant is also maintained. So these are four important pillars which we need to see during the conformed process giving part. Now, what are the few ethical principles? I'll just touch upon this. You must have read in other sessions of GCPs also. First is principle of autonomy. So we need to understand that each person has a right over their body, treatments, interventions, or research which is to be conducted on them. And it should be their decision only. So this decision has to be respected and to be kept at the important forefront. Second is the protection of vulnerables. Now, some research participants are classified as vulnerable population like the children or the poor from the low socioeconomic strata or those who are not uneducated. For that matter, even if we conduct some studies on medical students also, they are also considered to be vulnerable population because they are in a class. I mean, they are working under the guardianship of an HOD. So we take all the precautions once we are taking the consent of them, so that this protection of vulnerable population is being given into place. Then third is the principle of transparency. Now, what do you mean by this word transparency? Now, this is very important that all the truth which is related to the research should be revealed to the participants, including any risk or adverse effect which the participant might face while he is a part of the study. So there has to be clear transparency in making him understand that what would be the benefit of the study. And on the same lines, we should also be talking about what are the anticipating risks which can happen in a study. And secondly, we all know that we have all the system in place to take care of the risk also in an ethical way. And the finally is principle of accountability. Now, researchers should act in a sense of responsibility to the welfare of the participant. Now, this is very important that the researcher is medically and legally, he is responsible for the welfare and well-being of the participants. So all these four principles has to be borne into mind when we are talking about this particular part. Now, what are the elements of informed consent? First is complete information disclosure. Second is decision-making capacity. Third is the voluntariness, which I have already spoken. And fourth is the authorization part. Now, we'll deal every topic one by one. Now, complete information disclosure means the relevant information to a potential participant that is necessary to make an informed decision should be given to the patient in complete format. And ICPAR 2017 guidelines and NDCT rules 2019 also, and the local ICSOPs also have the things in place that how it is to be conveyed to the participant. But one thing is very important is the language in which it is told to the participant is very important. It has to be a language which is patient friendly and they should be able to understand this. And the style of delivering the content or making them understand what we are doing in this research study is also very important. We need to provide all the relevant information to a potential participant that is necessary to make an informed decision in a two-way communication. Now, the informed consent document has got two parts. First is the patient or the participant information sheet, and second is the informed consent form. Now, what's a patient and a participant information sheet? It contains all the information on the facts about the research which is relevant to participation. Means this contains all the information which the participant should know before he consents to come or to recruit himself in a research. So this is again important. And secondly is the form where participants' acknowledgement or participants' permission that he or she has understood the information which is given in the patient information sheet, and finally he has made up his mind and he is volunteering to be included or to be a part of this particular research. Now, what are the essential elements of PIS? Very important aspect is, first of all, we need to tell to the patient that this is not a therapeutic process, this is a research. On a very lighter note, many people, at the end of the study, they come to know that they were in a research. So this is something which has to be told in beginning only, that this is a research and not a therapeutic process per se. The trials treatment and the probability for random assignment to each treatment. If it is a randomized trial, you can be randomized to any arm of the study, has to be mentioned to the participant. Why this study is being conducted and what is the method of the study, what all doing in the research has to be told. Expected duration of the participation and frequency of contact with the estimate number of participants to be enrolled, type of data collection and methods. Like what would be the approximate number of the participants who would be there in the trial, and what is the duration of this study, and what all data which we will be collecting, whether we will be collecting only blood or some biological samples, or we would be collecting only some questions in reply to the answers which will be in reply to a questionnaire. So that is to be told to the patient or the participant. What is the potential benefit to the participant, community or other that might reasonably be expected as an outcome of research? So because the patient or a participant is participating in the study, he is expecting some benefit out of that, and that has to be told in a very balanced way, not exaggerating it, not keeping it to the minimum, but whatever is the expected benefits has to be told to the participant. Any foreseeable risk, discomfort or inconvenience to the participant which can happen in this study should be told to him. If this is a placebo-controlled study, you have to. I just want to share one important example, that when I was reviewing, like the ethics committee was reviewing informed consent form, there was a statement about placebo. So I said the word placebo should not be there in the patient information sheet because the patient will not understand placebo, right? At times when we spoke to patients, they thought that placebo is a very higher medicine which will be very good for them types. So this is something which should not be said, and the right word of placebo has also to be informed to the patient. Any reimbursement which is justifiable and which has been approved by the ethics committee also for participation and incidental expenses, depending on the type of the study, has to be conveyed to the participant. And the free treatment or compensation of participants for research-related injuries or any harm should be told to the patient. Nowadays, I think you would be knowing, or you would come to know in Indian GCP, that there is a concept which is post-trial access. Nowadays, if the drug has shown some good result on patients, after the completion of the time, till the time that drug comes into the market, there is a provision that the patient will be getting that drug free of cost also from the sponsor. So the entire effect is to concentrate on the patient, take care of its well-being and its safety. Confidentiality, who will see the documents is important, has to be told to the participant. And importantly, freedom to participate or to withdraw. This is very important, that you need to tell this thing to the patient that you can withdraw at any point of time if you feel that you don't want to participate in the study, and this will not lead to any loss of benefit. Otherwise, you would have been entitled for that. So, इससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. Definitely, we will try to see in a very rational way that what could be the reason which has forced patient to leave the study. But that's the second part of the story. He can withdraw if he feels like. The identity of the research team and member secretary with the address and phone number or helpline for appeal against violation of ethical principle or any information which the participant wants to know is very important. So when we give a signed copy of the informed consent form to the participant or his legally accepted representative, there is a contact number also in the patient, and the participant clearly knows that in case of any problem, any appeal, to whom he needs to contact. Second is the decision-making capacity. It consists of 4 abilities. The participant should be able to understand the information. It should not be in very hardcore medical format. but it should be in a very simple way and a two-way communication type. We should always, encourage the participant to ask questions also, and to tell him at every point of time, if you have not understood anything, you can always ask it back. He should be able to appreciate the situation in which this study has been conducted. He should be able to rationally manipulate the information, and voluntarily he should be able to communicate the choice. This is important decision-making capacity which the trial participant should possess, and it definitely depends on its cognitive abilities, its volunteerism, and very importantly, language. So language is an important thing. You have to give all the information in the language with the participant understands in a very friendly manner, so that he is comfortable and he is not being intimidated by the researcher or the doctor. Now, competency is also a legal notion. The individual's legal standing to make healthcare decision is very important. Means you cannot take consent from minors, right? So we'll be talking about in my further presentation that what is a legally acceptable representative, or what's an impartial witness, who are a very important person in generating informed consent when the person who is giving the consent is illiterate or he doesn't understand things much. The third is voluntarism. The ability of an individual to judge freely, independently, and in absence of coercion what is right, what is good, and what is best, subjected to his or her own situation, values, and priorities. You can see in this cartoon that I'm not coaching anyone. I'm just explaining what you must do to avoid going to hell. I mean, such statements which indirectly gives coercion to the participant should not be done. And finally is authorization. Now, authorization means here the participants communicate his decision that he has taken voluntarily, and usually this is in form of signing an informed consent with the copy of the signed form which is given to the participant or his legally acceptable relative. To be very frank, this is a very smaller part of the exercise, but most of the time we give very more time to this particular exercise. Rather, our focus should be on the initial part of the exercise to make him understand what we are trying to do in the way he understands. We should encourage him asking the questions, and finally, when he has understood everything, then this should be the final part of the signing part. It has to be signed by the participant. It also has to be signed by the PI, or if PI has delegated this to somebody after the due note in the delegation law, he can take. And then accordingly, an LAR or an impartial witness signature also has to be taken in these scenarios accordingly. So this should not be like, the informed consent or the patient information sheet should be not of this type. The patient is really apprehensive. Oh my God, like how to read this much. It has to be made in a way that patient understands it better and in a less cumbersome way. Now, what are the various stakeholders in the informed consent process? There are certain direct stakeholders and some are indirect. First is potential participants, as we have all understood. Legally acceptable representative or impartial witness. If the patient is minor, then definitely, the parents become the legally acceptable representative. And at times, if legally acceptable representatives are also not available, we can take a person like an impartial witness. Most of us must have gone for getting some register done or registry done or some notary process done. There is always a sign of a witness. But here it is not only a witness, an impartial witness. Important is this witness should not be related to that study in any format. Like supposing if we are talking about a ward, we can take patient from a different ward, and he has to listen to all the things which we are giving to the participant, and accordingly his signature is to be taken. Why we say him impartial? Because in no way he is connected either to the study or to the investigator. So he understands everything, and being a well-wisher of the patient, he takes this responsibility along with the thumb signature, the thumb impression which we take from the participant also. Investigator in the site is also important, and the sponsor and indirectly is IC, the Institutional Ethics Committee, which is a very important stakeholder, because IC reviews the informed consent form before it is being given to the participant. Sponsor makes it and it is being given to the participant, and the regulators also. This will depend on the country where the trial is being conducted. Investigator should be appropriately qualified. he should have a GCP certification. This is very important. Any study, if you want to be a PI, you should have GCP certification. So please understand, you are not doing this, you are not attending this thing only to get a certificate, but it will also enable you and give you a very good insight that what all things you should do and you should be careful about when you are conducting a particular study, be it an academic research or a clinical trial later. He should be trained in site and relevant ICs, SOPs, and act according to them. If not the PI, this responsibility can be delegated by the PI to somebody else, but this has to be mentioned in the duty delegation law. The investigator also should ensure that the latest IC approved versions of informed consent documents are being used. He should be able to read, write, understand, communicate in the language of informed consent, preferably in the patient's own language, and should have a good communication skill also. So he should be able to interact with the patient in a better way. Site, yes, the infrastructure and the space to ensure privacy and confidentiality of the participants, because when you are delivering or when you are giving all the information, it has to be a comfortable place and it should be like suitable for the patient so that the patient is in a very comfortable position. We conduct informed consent process as per relevant local or national regulatory guidelines or law, especially if we are talking about AV recording also. Audiovisual recording was once mandatory, but because of the problems in taking that audiovisual thing in far-flung areas, now government has given very simple ruling for which particular studies only the AV recording for informed consent has to be done. Sponsor happens to be an important person. He should have all the resources to develop the ICD per the protocol and applicable guidelines, and he should be able to prepare in vernacular translations and back translation. This is a very important requirement by the ethics committee that the information has to be in the vernacular language. Finally, we come to IC. Should have its own SOP to decide how to review an ICD. The non-technical member's role is very important when we are talking about informed consent form. And like I always say that it is crucial that if the layperson of the ethics committee has understood the informed consent document, like there are very high chances that the participant will also be able to understand that. IC should monitor the informed consent process whenever it is possible, and they should review the signed consent form that it has been signed by both the participant, the PI, and as per the condition by the impartial witness and by the legally acceptable representative also. They can observe the actual consent process also, and they can do it by reviewing consent videos and so on. Participants legally authorized representatives are only required when he is a minor. Participant should be informed to the extent compatible with his or her understanding, and then only the consent should be sought and it should be documented. Now, what if you want to take informed consent in children? So parents or legally authorized representative of that particular child is to be taken if the child is less than 18 years of age. This is known as assent. What is an assent? It is approval of older children when you are conducting a trial on children, say between 7 to 18 years of age. They understand the concept nowadays, like the children are very smart. They understand now how it is to be taken. So, in written assent has to be taken from the age 12 to 18 and verbal from 7 to 12 years. We must explain to the extent the child should be able to understand using age appropriate information sheets, and 2 documents should be signed when we are taking assent. One should be signed by the parents or the legally acceptable representative, and second, we have to take signature from the child also. And if he says no, then importantly the child's dissent also has to be respected. How the consent be documented? If the participant is illiterate, a literate impartial witness, as I have already said, attends the informed consent process and thumb impression of the participant is taken. Why there is an impartial witness? You need to understand, so that he takes the decision on behalf of the patient in a very neutral way, and we should choose a person who is in no way connected to the researcher or to that particular trial. He should be a neutral person. He should be able to understand it, and it should be able to take decision in the best interest of the patient. How the consent should be documented? Very important. It has to be signed and dated by participant, by our participant's LAR, and also by the person who is conducting the informed consent discussion. The person must be consented in the language that is understandable to them, right? English, fine. So nowadays we are insisting that if supposedly I am doing a trial in Maharashtra, it should be Hindi, it should be Marathi, and then it could be English, right? So at least 3 forms, so that there is high chances that we use a language patient can understand. EC has to approve this translated consent document. It is again very important. The informed consent form and the translation and the back translations has to be reviewed by the ethics committee only, and then it can be given to the participant. It is the investigators and IC's responsibility to ensure that the translation is accurate. A very important responsibility which lies on the shoulders of the ethics committee. Now I was saying that initially AV consent was being made mandatory. So DCGI orders on 19th November 2013, AV consent was made mandatory for all. But DCGI order on 31st July 2015 has made that AV reporting should only be done for vulnerable participants in clinical trial of new chemical entity, that is NCE, or audio reporting to be done in clinical trials of anti-HIV and anti-leprosy drug. Thanks to the regulatory authorities that they've seen that how difficult it is to take, to do the audio video recording part. There are so many ethical issues also which is associated with this. So they have granted, considering on that part, now the regulator has given us very clear guidelines that under which conditions, what all consenting, and in what way it is to be done. Finally, few words about revision of consent form. When do we revise the consent form? If supposedly a new information in terms of risk-benefit ratio comes out during the study, or so this is something which has to be mentioned, or if a child becomes an adult, during the study process also, again, you need to take consent from that particular child, because now he has become an adult, and EC's approval has to be obtained. Once you revise it, it has to be given to the EC. After the approval of the EC only, it could be instituted. There is a possibility of disclosure of identity data through data presentation of photograph. So you need to be very careful that the camouflage part is to be done, which is taught in army also. Yes, the camouflage part is very important when you are showing about a participant in your upcoming publication. So this is about when you need to take re-consent. Few words about waiver. I feel that waiver should only be taken when you cannot really take consent. This should be the underlying statement. It involves like retrospective studies where patients or participants are totally de-identified and they cannot be contacted. So there is no point in taking you cannot take an informed consent on anonymized biological samples or data. It also involves surveillance programs or program evaluation studies. Like in COVID, we must have seen that there are certain ways they want to conduct a test to contain the outbreak. Government can do that, and the concept of informed consent could be waived off. If the data is available in public domain, it can be done. And finally, if the court orders some medical examination, there is no question which comes of an consent. It's a court's order, so one has to do that. These are few. Sir, do I have 3 minutes more?
Go ahead,
Yes,
sir.
sir,
Go
you
ahead.
can do that.
Yeah. So this is this slide I have kept only for my students to make them understand. See, when you will be doing your synopsis also, for your thesis presentations, you will be needing an informed consent form, and at least try to make a good consent form so that you can put it in front of the ethics committee, and ethics committee people would be very happy that the students are seasoned, from day one only regarding the ethical issues which they need to follow, and they are really concerned about the welfare and the safety of the patient. So please take care of the informed consent form, how it is to be designed. Go and speak to your guides, and they will definitely help you. And this sensitization will also help you in understanding why this form is so important. At times, the challenges in obtaining consent, there could be a language barrier. Yeah, it could happen. And secondly, what I have seen in few clinical trials is at times patient understands that this is a therapeutic study. Means definitely there is something good for me only. So this is a treatment option only where I am participating. So this part is very important, which is told to be told to the participants or to the patient that this is a research where it can happen in both the ways. So this is something where they should be very clear of that this is only like it's just a study and not a therapeutic intervention. You have to be very careful in the vulnerable participants when you are taking. I have spoken about the vulnerable participant part to you also. So when if you are conducting studies on such population, you have to be careful. And then challenges in capacity to decide, like children, people with mental disability, unconscious patients. There are so many other ways by which you can take the consent. Take one important aspect that if there is an emergency, always try to take the permission from the head of the institute or the medical superintendent where this particular, study you are planning to conduct. So it is not so finally I would say it is not a piece of paper, it is not a signature. Informed consent is a process by which we ensure that the participant's right to be informed and right to consent to the research is protected. It's a document of our efforts to protect the participant's right to the satisfaction of the independent observers. So finally, this should not be the conditions or this should not be the scenario in an informed consent form. Try to tell him everything. Try to tell whatever you are doing in the particular research. Try to tell the advantage and the anticipated risk also. And I think this will definitely help you in making good doctor-patient relationship. And the patient will also have trust in you that whatever this doctor is doing, he is doing in my best interest. These are my references, and thank you so much for your listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. Your presentation has a rare combination of conciseness and comprehensiveness. So without much ado, I would like to say that you have a 3 questions waiting for you in question and answer box. Should I read it for you? I'm audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible. Please
So
ahead, sir.
first question, you can also read this first question in box is a study on participant who admitted in trauma care center with head injury. If the participant is unconscious during recruitment, then who will give the consent?
Exactly.
And subsequently, participant become conscious, then any modification to be done regarding consent? If the patient is unknown without any patient party, then what to do?
It's a wonderful question. That's what I mentioned also in my talk also. Now, supposedly you are working in an hospital, like there is a medical institute, and where you are trying to recruit some patient which is unconscious. First of all, you need to understand that if you are doing something which is in the best interest of the patient, at times this could be waived off, or you can take the permission from the head of the institute or the medical superintendent of that particular hospital. But importantly, you have to take care that once the patient regains consciousness, immediately you have to take consent from that particular patient. Or if some relative or legally acceptable representative of that patient, if they happen to come to that particular hospital, accordingly they also have to be informed and the consent has to be taken from them also. So ultimately, see, consent is you need to understand that it is to be done in the best interest of the patient. Your mind will automatically guide you, and from the regulation point of view, the head of the institution or the medical superintendent can give consent.
So in other words, sir, we can say that in emergency condition, we can exempt the informed consent.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Like
sir. Subject to the following things which I have said.
Okay. The second, sir, you have already answered, but still there is a question. In what type of study the video recording of consent taking process is mandatory?
Yeah, I have already mentioned that like initially they made for BAB studies also only like consent has to be taken, and that I have mentioned in my slide also. And I think this presentation will come like online also, so they can take this. Or if there is a specific question by a student, we can send him all the notification also, which satisfies his answer.
Yeah, and in which condition informed consent is not required? It has already been answered in the presentation. And next question, what happens when patient changes consent later in clinical trials?
See, the patient changes means if he withdraws from a clinical trial, first of all, he has the right to do that. Normally, we take all the care so that if any intervention is being given to that particular patient, the patient will be followed up till that period of time, till the time the investigator feel that the intervention which was being given to that patient will not have any effect onto the patient. And side by side, sir, we also try to understand at our own level only without any coercion talking to the patient also that why he is withdrawing from the study, and if we find that there is something which is bothering the patient and which could have been tackled also. So accordingly, all these changes are to be made, and we become more careful, when we are recruiting our other patients.
That's a very logical answer, sir. Thank you so much. And next question. Sir, my students are planning to do a study with patient in medical ICU, MICU. It's a prospective observational study. They have submitted a waiver of consent. Should they take informed consent for such studies, or waiver is enough?
Sir, what kind of studies you mentioned, sir?
It's an observational study, prospective observational study, patient in MICU. MICU is, I understand, medical ICU.
See, if the patient is in ICU, that is what I am saying. If the patient is in ICU also, and if it is a medical legal case, it is always better not to recruit patients if the patient is involved in some medical legal incident. That is very important because this can lead to problems later. But ICA GCP only says one thing, that if the person is in the right frame of mind, physically, mentally, and legally, give this consent, it could be taken. But I will tell one important thing to my student, that please try to avoid, I am working in a government medical college, sir. I get prisoners who are coming as in my IPD, and there were few studies which they wanted to conduct on the prisoners. Initially, I said it is better not to do it, but in the interest of the research, if it is required, we need to take the consent from the patient also, and we need to inform this to the head of the institute and the police authorities also. Then only the study could be conducted.
Yeah, wonderful.
In
answer,
addition
sir.
to that, just a minute, in addition to that, the student is saying they have submitted the waiver of consent to the ethics committee. In that case, if the ethics committee gives the approval for waiver of consent, they can go
Yeah,
ahead with this.
Yeah, yes. In the ethics committee is the final authority. If they say yes, it could be given.
Next question, sir.
Next question. Can we ask for a waiver of consent for MBBS student for a teaching learning method intervention study? Sir, there are a lot of questions about the waiver of consent. Now, in this case, MBBS student for a teaching learning method intervention study.
Sir, again, I'm saying, sir, see, basically, if we are doing a teaching learning study and it is being conducted on medical students, it is always better to take their consent also, because see, it is not about that the study is only observational or it is teaching learning, but you are recruiting the vulnerable population. So whenever I conduct such studies at my institution also, I prepare a Google form and I tell all the things to my student and take their consent also. It is always better to take the consent when you are doing studies on student, and if the researcher happens to be a teacher or from some teaching staff, it is always better.
Yeah, student is among the vulnerable population.
It is, sir. Yes.
Sir, the last question is that if new ADR is seen during a trial, do we inform all other participants?
Again, it's a very see. I would ask I can't see the student who has asked this. I would leave this thing to him also. That if you would have been in this place, what you would have answered. Definitely, if a new ADR comes, sir, this is a point where the patient information sheet has to be rectified, and it is to be mentioned out there. The ethics committee has to be informed. All the relevant stakeholders has to be involved. After making the changes in the patient information sheet, it has to be again sent to the ethics committee, and it has to be informed to the participant, and if the participant is minor, to his LAR and other people also, that this is mandatory and this is ethically important to be followed. It is mandatory and it definitely has to be done.
Sir, one last question.
Yes.
I have a question about anonymous biological specimen data. Does placenta come under that? Can we have a waiver of IC? Any precedent, your opinion?
Sir, if it is anonymized, see, now I would just like to tell you, there are certain things which researchers say anonymized, but they can definitely trace back also that this sample belongs to which particular person. Anonymized means for for like current position, it is anonymized, but it could always be traced back. And nowadays regulation clearly says Indian GCP also says that if you can trace back, to which person this sample belongs to, then definitely you cannot ask for waiver, and you have to inform that person also on whose sample you are conducting this particular study. So again, it is mandatory.
Sir, the moment you are answering the question, there are new question coming up. Should I read next question? So, next question: is there any universal informed consent form which cover all aspect? Universal informed consent form.
Sir, yeah. So see, ICH GCP guidelines, it tells you a format how an informed consent form is to be made, and with the permission of Dr. Dakre sir and the organizers of this particular thing, if the students form, we can design one form also, and we can send it to all the students those who are part of the study. In ICH GCP guidelines, they have mentioned what all, like how you need to formulate an informed consent. This has been given.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your all very logical and satisfying answer. Thank you so much. Now over to Dr. Ganesh.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now we are at the end of the today's session. I am very thankful to both the speaker, Dr. Hila Balla sir, as well as
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Jitendra Singh sir for their excellent, concise and conceptual presentation. I am also deeply grateful to moderators, Dr. Sanjeev sir, as well as Dr. Naresh Jyoti sir for their
Thank you,
nice
sir.
moderation. Lastly, my sincere thanks to all participants for their active participation as well as patience hearing. With this, now I declare that today's session is over and we will meet again on 20th of March at 3 p.m. Once again, happy Holi to all of you. Enjoy the Holi today as well as tomorrow. Till then,
Sir, happy Holi to all of you, sir, and long live NPT. Jai Hind, sir.
Happy
thank
Holi,
you,
sir.
sir. Long
Happy
live
Holi to
Thank you,
all.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. आजा आदि